perhaps a more technical question to start out, which is, how do you decide on, or how do you kind of craft your last lines? Because there was a great delight that, and sometimes that delight was like being struck by a ton of bricks, but nevertheless, like that, there was a great delight in writing the last lines of each of your pieces. And how do you go through the process of editing for that, for planning for that? How much do you prioritize the delivery on that last line for the poems that you're producing?
That's a great question. Should I use this? Should I use
Okay. Well, I heard, and I can't remember what writer it was, but I was reading an interview on writing poetry, and this person said that the reason they stopped writing poetry and started writing novels and longer pieces was because poetry is so difficult, because you have to land the plane over and over and over. And I think about that all the time. You do. You have to land the plane over and over and over. So I will say for me, like with these newer poems, this newer manuscript, there was a couple different ones that I read that I was like, oh, this feels like it's going on a little bit too long. So that's one way, is like reading newer pieces and just feeling when I'm energetically kind of like, oh, I think I already said what needed to be said, and now I'm sort of saying it in a different way, you know, kind of trying to hammer it home. So that's one way, is just feeling for the pacing and feeling in a room too, you know, if it starts to feel like a little long. And then, I don't know, it's tough because you want to give closure, but you don't want to be pat. So I'm always trying to find a way to end that has tension in it, so that it's true to life. And that's hard. And I rely a lot on just sound as well. Like what will, not just what image will have a little bit of tension, or what idea will have a little bit of tension, but like also what the way the words sound in your mouth, or how you hear them, how will that feel a little, you know, like tectonic plates, like they're closed but not quite, if that makes sense.
So much.
Yeah, ending a poem is, I think, the thing that comes least naturally to me.
Everybody.
Yeah.
What poets, or just any writers,
It's
right?
hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It is, and it's the part that I wrestle with the most in my poems, I would think, because a lot of times I'll have a poem that I feel is getting good, but it just doesn't end right, and then that's the part that I think on a first draft I almost never have an ending that I think is adequate. I think. But fortunately, I don't worry too much about the writing. I worry about the editing, and so eventually, if I work hard enough, hopefully the poem will find that right ending. And I also, I kind of don't worry too much. Part of how I do it is I write enough poems that one of them's gonna have a good ending. Kind of how it goes, and like Sarah said, I really love a poem that ends with a little bit of music to it. The sound is important. I love, if you look at my poem, they don't all rhyme at the end, but a lot of them have a rhyme or a sound that links. There's a reason sonnets are so important. At the end, you get the rhyme right next to each other, because it snaps it shut like a chest closing. And I think that's what a good, if you can find the right sound to close a poem, that's magic.
Without it being at the Green Mill, which was where Poetry Slam was founded, if back in the day, and I don't know if it's still this way, but if you were reading your original poem and the end rhymes became too obvious, it was encouraged for the audience to start yelling out the word before you got to it. So I think too, because I started out in Poetry Slam and performance poetry, it really forces you, not that you're sitting there thinking about the reader as you're drafting, but you just don't, it feels like there's no easy way out, and you feel a sense of accountability to your readers and your listeners, and that they're gonna hold your feet to the fire if you don't really push yourself, kind of. Yeah, that was my worst nightmare, that would happen at poetry slam.
Pretty motivating though.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
It toughens you up.
Hostile audiences.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's true.